Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hector Hernandez here at Logicalis, and I have Josh Hatfield here with me. We are going to continue our series in, discussing how to increase advanced threat hunting efficiency. And this episode 2 will be discovering how the SIEM can help with that. So in the last episode, we covered endpoint protection and management, and we showcase how the QRadar EDR solution can actually autonomously stop threats and respond to zero-day and ransomware attacks. And we also show how you can manage your endpoints and keep track of your endpoints and do certain things with your endpoints visibility that you cannot do with regular tools. And in today's episode, Josh Hatfield is going to be covering log management and event prioritization, and that will include some endpoint data and will include some network analytics. So when you see the SIEM word, it's not really SIEM. The QRadar solution includes the NDR, and he has some other things that Josh will be speaking to. With that said, I'm glad to introduce you, Josh Hatfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. I'm Josh Hatfield. I'm the Partner Technical Specialist. I work directly with Logicalis and with Hector. And today I'm going to be talking to you about QRadar SIEM, which is Security Information and Event Management. We like acronyms in security, but just want to make sure you know what I'm talking about. What I'm showing you now is our entire threat hunting suite, which we are calling the QRadar Suite. And it's made up of a couple of different components. The main components are QRadar SIEM. We also have QRadar SOAR, which is our security orchestration, automation, and response tool. And then we have QRadar EDR and XDR, which is our endpoint detection and response, as well as Log Insights, which is more of like a log management and searching solution. And unifying all of them is what we call the unified analyst experience. So they all share a very common user interface. And we have X-Force threat intelligence across the board integrated with all of these products, meaning that you get alerting on indicators of compromise like URLs, IP addresses, known malware domains, like ongoing malware threat campaigns, threat actor information. We have a team at IBM that's dedicated to constantly staying up to date on these and providing you information on all these tools to make sure that you are aware if you're affected by any of these. So one thing that's really great about QRadar SIEM and something that I'll show you in the demo is how much information it consolidates into one screen for your security team to utilize. And what you're seeing here on the bottom are some screenshots of what we call in QRadar an offense. And an offense is basically a potential incident. And all the data that feeds into QRadar, whether it's log events, network flows, vulnerability information, or threat intelligence information, all of it gets normalized and correlated against each other so that if you have events that are all coming in separate, disparate formats, we can detect patterns across all your different security tools that you have available to you in your environment. So the example you can see right here is like a multi-stage ransomware email where an indicator of compromise was detected on mail, followed by a process being launched from a temporary directory, followed by an email attachment with an executable, from a suspect email. So QRadar is really good at detecting multi-stage attacks. We map all of our information to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which I'm sure you're familiar with. That's basically the standard in identifying tactics and techniques that threat actors use. And all of our alerts are prioritized with a weighted score called magnitude. And you can see a little graphic here that magnitude is a three-part score made up of relevance, credibility, and severity. And that basically is determined by what type of data source is feeding QRadar, where it's located on your network, how much do you trust this data source, and then severity being the criticality of the event that is sent to QRadar. So we also have a lot of automation built into QRadar. We've got over 600 rules out of the box in QRadar, and these rules, you can kind of see a preview of that on the left. Multiple different test conditions. You can think of it kind of like Microsoft Outlook rules. It's that simple to put together a custom rule in QRadar, but also get value out of the box right of the way, right out of the gate with all the built-in rules that we have. We also help you set up basically your awareness of your entire environment through an asset hierarchy, where we can basically passively discover all of your endpoints, whether those are servers or workstations, create an asset database, and then also import vulnerability data from your vulnerability scanner to get more enriched information about those endpoints. And the interface has a lot of great visualizations. You can see kind of a preview of one of our threat visualizations where it shows you the source and destination, and then a sort of a graphic of where the origin is in the world compared to where the destination is. So it's very flexible. Anything that you can search on in QRadar, you can turn it into a dashboard. You can turn it into a report that can be like emailed out or accessed within the tool itself. So you have a lot of great collaboration opportunities and reporting and visibility for management. And we have been a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for 13 years now. QRadar is a very mature security product, and we are constantly working to develop it and upgrade it, adding new functionality. We have a very rich app exchange, which is basically add-ons that are available to QRadar free of charge with no additional licensing that extend functionality with things like user behavior analytics, integrations with all of your existing security tools where you can do one-click bidirectional integrations when within QRadar. The goal is basically to simplify the job of the security analyst or security engineer to where they're not having to go in between a bunch of different tools in order to complete their job. And with that, I am going to show you the SIM demo. Give me one moment to bring this up. So I'm loading into the main page of QRadar, which is going to be the dashboards. And this is a really good high-level view of what is going on in the environment. And we can see here information about offenses that QRadar has detected. And just a refresher, offenses are any combination of events, flows, vulnerabilities, threat intelligence information that QRadar detected using its custom rule engine. And you can see all the different types of events, of offenses that have been generated here, like email policy violations, privilege escalations, process creations, firewall denies, all the main security type events that you would expect to see in a nice visual view. And this is really like if your security analysts would work from either this screen or the offense screen, and you can have these dashboards up on the wall in the Security Operations Center or wherever your security team is sitting. We have a lot of built-in dashboards that come out of the box, and it's very easy to create new dashboards as well. Again, all of these components in the dashboards are basically just searches that are in QRadar. So if you can search the data in QRadar, you can turn it into a visualization. With that, I'd like to show you some of the offenses in QRadar, and I should have a good number of them here in my demo system. So I'm just going to pick an interesting one for us to look at here. So here is an interesting multi-stage offense. And when you open up an offense in QRadar, you get a lot of information right at your fingertips. In the case of this offense, the way that we group all this information together is what we call an offense type. And here we have it grouped together by source IP. So we can see that 7 different events and 93 network flows contributed to this offense. And they all shared the same source IP. So QRadar was able to tie together all of these events and create one easy to understand story here. And if you hover over the title of the offense, you can see that this one is 4 different stages where we have a local database scanner being detected, a user accessing a DGA domain, an infected workstation downloading data from a critical server, followed by a potential data exfiltration using large DNS packets via possible tunneling. So that whole story is right there for the security analysts to respond to. Every single offense is also mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK tactics and techniques, and we can see the variety of events or of techniques that were used in this offense. So we have like exfiltration, discovery, defense evasion, lateral movement, initial access, and then we also have execution and command and control. These were discovered by the Watson plugin for QRadar. So one of the things that we're really proud of at IBM and that we've made a priority in all of our security products is including artificial intelligence and machine learning in the products to, once again, make the job of your security team easier so you're not overwhelmed by the number of alerts, by the number of offenses, and all the information that they have available to them. In this case, we did a Watson investigation and discovered 5 malware families associated with this offense. And if I go in here and view this investigation, I can show you exactly what that would look like. So here are all the indicators of compromise that we observed that are associated with this offense for the source IP. So we can see we have things here like malware hashes, malware types. We have IP addresses that are known to be malicious. We have different malware families. One way that's really easy to understand this information is if we go into this graph view, which gives you this sort of like spider web of interrelated information. What's useful to see in how Watson is going to work here is if I unclick the Watson enriched data, this is all the original data that was observed in QRadar in that offense. So we have information about endpoints here. We see a bunch of like 10.4 endpoints that are on the network. These endpoints connected to this domain. This domain is associated with this IP address. And then we know that this IP address is associated with some sort of threat actor. Watson was able to basically go out and search open source intelligence on the internet, like threat intelligence feeds, security blogs, and find out that this offense is associated with, these malware file hashes. And you can see here that X-Force ranks all of the information from a high, medium, low, and this one is a high concern. And we can see also how relevant it is, the toxicity, meaning like how damaging it could be, and more information about this file. So the Watson advisor for QRadar is a really great way to basically augment QRadar's already great out-of-the-box capabilities in that it sort of does the initial threat hunting and investigation activity for the analysts, and then they have a lot better information to work off of when they are moving forward. So with that, let's go back into the offense. And just want to again highlight, all the information that was combined into this one offense, 7 events, 93 flows across 8 different categories. All of these events that contributed, you can just click on this and search the events, and it will run a search in QRadar that will show every single event. And here we have like secure FTP sessions opening, infected workstations downloading data from a critical server, users accessing a DGA domain, database scanners. All of these were combined into that offense, where in the past, in traditional SIMs, you would have to run these searches manually. You would have to do all this investigation. QRadar does all that heavy lifting and hard work for you. Another great thing that's built into QRadar and available out of the box is our user behavior analytics app. And this basically connects to an identity source. It can work 2 different ways. It can either passively observe users from the events and network flows that are in QRadar, or ideally, you can connect it to your identity server, such as LDAP, Active Directory, and it gets you really interesting information about the different users. So in this example, we have a user named Josh, looks like Josh Taylor, based on his email. He is a CEO. We know like where they work out of, New York. We can see like aliases that they may be using. Maybe if there's an alias, a username that they haven't used in a long time, it would be considered dormant. All of that is customizable in this app. But basically, all the activities that are associated with these users, whether that's log events, network flows, contributes to a risk score that will go up and down over time. And because I've had this demo running for about a day, the risk scores have decayed. But in a live environment, you would see higher risk scores based on risky activities. And then you can also see the offenses that all of these users have associated with them. With UBA, we add over 200 custom roles to QRadar. It also has a machine learning capability where it can look at, like, for example, user groups that it imported from Active Directory. Like you have a group of developers. They all log in, during office hours from the same geographical region. If all of a sudden a developer account logs in the middle of the night from like China, something like that, that would be a high-risk event that could potentially indicate account compromise, and that would flag an offense in QRadar for your security analysts to respond to. So just a great app. A lot of other of our competitors, UBA is a paid add-on. This one we've been developing for 4 or 5 years now. It's always been free of charge, no additional license costs, and it gives you that great user behavioral information for you. If you've ever used a SIM or if you're familiar with them, you probably know that one of the hardest things to do is to work with tuning the SIM. And we have actually created this use case manager app, which automates a lot of the tuning processes. Most commonly, you'll be looking at your custom rules, the rules that are basically evaluating all the events and flows that are coming into QRadar and that are generating those offenses. So we make it easy to basically tune those custom rules based on how many offenses they're generating, how many events they're generating. And we also help you with things like defining your network hierarchy, which is like your different segments of your network. You would have like a high security segment, a DMZ, maybe like a database segment, building blocks, which also contain information about your environment and are leveraged in custom rules. As well as you might want to go in and look at what rules do we have disabled right now that might be useful to enable, that might give us good information. So out of the box, automated tuning. In the past, that's been a very painful manual process, but we've made it much easier to do. And I'm going to go in here and look at our use case explorer. So this is like a nice interface for looking at all the custom rules that we have within QRadar, and we can see we have over 600 out of the box here. And if I look at just one of these, I can kind of show you what it looks like. So this is a very simple example of like excessive firewall denies from a single source. That could indicate someone is trying to brute force or denial of service attack to your network. Pretty bread and butter threat actor activity. But the way QRadar does this is through these test definitions where we are applying this custom rule on everything except for, and when it has a BB here, that's building block. So we have a building block that defines all of our servers locally in the environment. And the reason that this is and not in here is because you may have a server that is misconfigured to connect to another server on your network and your firewall is blocking it over and over again. That's not necessarily a threat activity. That's just more of a configuration issue. So you don't necessarily want that to trigger an offense. But, you know, if you have, you know, events coming in, and we have a category definition here for firewall or ACL denies, that means that no matter what firewall vendor you're using, whether it's like Palo Alto, Cisco, Juniper, QRadar maps all those different types of denies to one building block, so that if you have different types of firewalls, you can detect denies across all the different data sources. So same source IP, more than 400 times, so a pretty high threshold, to one destination IP within 5 minutes. So we also map every custom rule to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. In this case, we're mapping it to discovery because this excessive firewall denies can most likely indicate port scanning, which is one of the first things a threat actor will do is basically scan your network, look for open ports, look for accessible servers, and then try to connect to them and see if they can get into your network. So pretty simple rule, but a really good use case in that you want to detect this. It's a very common technique that people use before trying to initiate some type of threat action. We can also see all the dependencies that this rule has in a sort of a graphical view. So we can see it's depending on the definition of servers, the definition of firewall denies, and then part of that server's definition is all your different types of servers, database servers, DNS servers, FTP, LDAP, mail. All of them, you want to define them as part of your basically initial setup and tuning of QRadar so that it knows to ignore certain behaviors from local data sources versus if you have an internet IP that is going to send all these excessive attempts, then that would indicate, you know, some type of remote threat action. So I'm going to close out of this rule. Another thing that's really nice about this use case manager app is we actually have a coverage map that we map all the custom rules and data sources in QRadar to the MITRE ATT&CK framework in a table that is a sort of a heat map. So you can see here all the different tactics and techniques, you know, across the top, initial access, execution, et cetera. And then the darker that these individual techniques are, the better your coverage is within your environment. So this could be a great way to identify blind spots to see where, you know, we have really good coverage of like command and scripting interpreters, things like PowerShell and like Bash and Linux. We have good coverage of like exfiltration over alternative protocols. It's very common for threat actors to try to hide their tracks by exfiltrating over something like DNS, for example, which looks innocent, but in fact, they're actually exfiltrating data. But maybe like we don't have any coverage for man-in-the-middle attacks. We don't have any coverage for like proxy. It's a really good way to kind of like see how your coverage is right now, where the blind spots are, and then, you know, you might say, well, we actually have a data source that can look for exploitation for credential access. We need to integrate this with QRadar and get that data in there so that we have this sort of coverage. So a really nice security posture check built into this tool. Also built into QRadar is the Assistant app. So this basically allows you to install all those apps and add-ons that I had mentioned before. It also contains in the Guide Center learning. So we've got like a learning academy where you can learn how to use QRadar, different types of use cases, different type of functionality. We have an ongoing series called Open Mics where we have like developers and product managers lead these sessions. Anyone can attend and ask questions and learn from them. We've got like pre-recorded use case videos to show you typical scenarios like detecting different types of threats, you know, doing things in QRadar as a security analyst, like creating reports, creating safe searches, dashboards, et cetera, as well as tech tips. And we also have some more, you know, built-in feeds for like social media, our security community, and the forum. We also have, so let's look at the application side of it. So we have here like featured applications. These are applications that IBM has developed that we believe bring a lot of value to QRadar. And we've actually looked at 2 of them already. One of them is QRadar Advisor with Watson. That's that AI app that is basically taking your data from offenses, your security data, and then comparing it to open source security intelligence sources on the internet. We have user behavior analytics, which we also viewed earlier. You know, we kind of dubbed this as like an essential app because it really brings so much functionality and usefulness to QRadar. We also have other things like network threat analytics. So I'll go in and like show you what one of these apps looks like. All these apps have their code verified by IBM. So before they can be submitted and hosted on the App Exchange and accessible via the QRadar Assistant, we make sure that the code is secure, that there's no like exploits, no vulnerabilities in the code before we even allow it to be uploaded, because obviously we don't want any of our clients to have risky applications installed on QRadar. But there is also built-in security into these apps. They all run within Docker containers, which is basically going to sandbox these applications to where they cannot access stuff that is outside of their sandbox. Which means, for example, an app would not be able to take down QRadar as a whole and then, you know, potentially reduce access for your security analysts and engineers and your security team. So this app that I opened up is QRadar Network Threat Analytics. It takes what we've done with user behavior analytics with the machine learning and the custom rule additions and basically applies it to the network side of things. So what it will do is you set this up and then you have network flows going into QRadar, whether that's NetFlow, IPFix, or even full layer 7 like packet capture. It will analyze all the traffic and create a baseline of what is, you know, normal network traffic in your environment. And it can alert on things like, you know, maybe we have a spike in DNS activity that could indicate like DNS tunneling. You know, what are like most common applications that are used? What are least common? In this example, screenshot, you can see things like peer-to-peer file sharing. You would obviously want to clamp down on that if that was going on your network. And it has really nice visualizations as far as what are the regions in the world that we have the most connections to and from. And, you know, maybe we might be concerned if, you know, we have connections from certain risky countries, like Russia is a very big host of threat actors and pretty much state-sponsored hackers over there. We categorize all the network traffic using this machine learning to where we can map flows to like, you know, DNS, remote secure shell, and then we map that traffic to the MITRE attack tactics and techniques so we can see like exploitation of remote services. Because it's DNS, this is most likely data exfiltration, lateral tool transfer. secure shell can be used to basically move laterally across the network. Once a threat actor gains access, they can also transfer files over SSH. So that would also be something interesting for the security analyst to look at. And I'm coming up on the end of my time right now, Hector. So I think I'm going to basically conclude it right here with we've covered, the main UI pulse. We looked at offenses. We looked at user behavior analytics. We looked at Watson. We looked at the use case manager as well as the assistant. So this is a very mature, very capable, very advanced security solution. QRadar SIEM, a SIEM is generally the centerpiece in any security stack, in that all of your other security products, firewalls, proxies, public cloud like AWS and Azure, all generate logs. You send them all to QRadar. It does its correlation, threat detection, and then basically consolidates that information to alerts that are only the useful alerts, only the real alerts, not false positives, that your security analyst can respond to.
Thank you so much, Josh, for this. So we are going to continue this series. I hope that you have enjoyed your time here with us today. Thank you again for participating, and please join us again at the end of November when we will have the last installment of this series, which would be a deeper dive on the SOAR mechanisms and how we can help you with playbooks to enhance your incident response. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.